All right, what is up, everybody? Thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And today we got the LL ban announcement, right? And I think that the actual ban change finally puts the format in a situation where it's not like so wide due to cards like CYB and things like that, and then also diplomacy as well, kind of narrowing the field, right? Because there were a lot of decks that kind of suffered from the possibility of CYB existing. And yeah, so I think the LL is finally to a point to where it can be analyzed. And so what we're gonna do for today's stream is we are gonna do a tier list, but it's not gonna be the tier list that a lot of people want or or are probably expecting. Basically, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take everybody kind of through my process of analyzing a meta. I'm going to take you step by step. Of course, this will be with very little data because there is no. So I'm just going to show you how, like, conceptually, I think about step by step, just how I break it all down, and from that point on. So I guess the question is, why am I doing this? And what I wanted to do is kind of do the LL streams. I plan on doing 2, this one and then the actual tier list later. But what I wanna do, I wanna analyze it, give it some thought, bounce some ideas off chat, see what all of you think as well. And I want to basically come up with the questions for the meta. Can this deck do this or withstand this, right? And then formulate everything that needs to be basically tested. And then I'm going to go test it or at least figure out what is the actual case. And then that's what we will derive off of for the actual yeah, tier list. So this is basically once again just a step by step of my process of analyzing a meta and then just setting up the questions that are to be answered. And um, giving us a solid path on, like, not just, oh, chain needs to be tested, right? Well, no, chain needs to be tested on the axis of, like, is he the best aggro deck? Is he even top three? What is diplomacy coming back into the format? And three of actually do questions like that. Um, and it gives us a fundamental understanding of kind of like where to go from here. And then maybe some of the people watching this stream, maybe you know the answers, right? And then you're just one step ahead of me, and you just see a couple other things that you got to figure out before you figure out what you're going to play for worlds or any PQ events that are actually LL. I know there's not a whole lot of them, but we will see going forward how those end up going. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and hop into it. No reason to delay. Just in case anybody missed it, let's just go ahead and go over what was actually banned and unbanned. Diplomacy was at a one of copy, which did create this like silver bullet esque kind of vibe, specifically for the rune blades. But because there was a silver bullet, but there was only a one copy, it built the situation for the rune blades where the juice was worth the squeeze, okay? And now there's 3 of them in most people's deck, anybody that can, like, logically play it, which is gonna drastically and I cannot express how much this change will make. Will it change as much as this? Probably not. I think this was the deck to play, before any changes happen. But I think your, like, value for impact, it was definitely Zephyr 1 and then Diplomacy 2 and then probably CYB, last, surprisingly. And, yeah, I already mentioned the CYB impact of just, being able to not have to play for that, uh, is just in deck building, it is such a relief, that you can actually just play a deck and not have to worry about that actively being a game plan. And Yeah, there were a lot of decks like new that would get an extreme amount of value by just like the possibility of being CYB new, right? And so I'm kind of glad that that does not exist because it just makes deck building a lot more simple and straightforward, but like in a good way, not like it's been dumbed down. It just you don't have to play around 14 different things, which is nice. And then obviously Zephyr Needle, of course, Zephyr Needle, Ira, and um, a lot of the ninjas actually played it, and it was just too much value. It was absolutely too much value. They got off the ground too quickly. LL games became 3 turns, or they would just set stuff up, and you know, it was just too much. So, do you think they could unban some Starvo disrupts if Winter's Whale was banned? Um, I don't know. Probably not, to be honest. And we're gonna get into those things. So I just wanted to kind of catch up anybody that was not aware of where we were. Um, so here, I guess one thing before we hop into the list, I want to highlight some cards as we go through some of these heroes. Things that like, okay, does this actively impact, you know, what the potential of like a hero participating in LO. And I'll give you an example. Like there is a card like Art of War, right? So any deck that logically would run Art of War is way better in LL because you obviously have access to that card. And then of course there's just a ton. Oh well, this is Blitz, but it's also banned in CZ as well, for good reason, right? So Belittle, right? If you have like a deck that can naturally kit in Belittle, then you just extract more value, right? Same thing for Skeleton. We've seen that with Viscerite. Simple stuff, right? Cashin is a good generic one. Are there decks that can just get off the ground really quickly? That's one that we're going to keep an eye on. And as we mentioned decks, we're going to kind of go through that. Crown of Seas is still banned in LL, so we don't have to worry about that. Draw to Brutality, I don't think it's like that massive. In all this recent stuff, High Octane is very relevant. So I just want to kind of familiarize everybody with these cards specifically. Tome of Findale, Firebrand Divinity, the tomes, the books. That's something that we're definitely going to put in our back pocket because that's going to play a huge role in what decks are actually playable in the Living Legend format. So let's go ahead and hop in. So I don't want to delay any longer. I want to break down kind of how we're going to approach this meta. So the way that I like to analyze a meta is I like to break it down into categories, right? And it's not that deep, right? I want to know what decks can participate on the aggro axis, right? And then I want to kind of just pit them against themselves. Okay, I want to say if the deck kind of without the agency of the opponent, what's just like the damage throughput, right? And then there's also some other math that you have to kind of put in there in regards to like how good is the equipment suite, things like that. Just some natural things that are always there, and just the general kit of the hero and how quick it is. And I kind of like to match them against each other. And then you have other categories like you have your disruptive decks like new things like that would fall into this. Then you have non-interactive and combo. This would be things like Kano, even Viscerite, in my opinion, in the direction that the deck will go with diplomacy coming into the format. And then you have value exchange, which is kind of opaque a little bit, I guess. And I think decks that would fit in that category would be decks like OG Prism, right? Where you're not particularly aggro, but you do this exchange on value. And you can also do some fancy stuff, obviously. So let's go. This is the best Rune Blade in LL meta. As of the diplomacy change, I would tend to agree with you 100%. So let's go ahead and hop in. First, we're going to do the easy stuff. We're just going to fill up the actually trolling line and just go ahead and throw a bunch of heroes there because you should just not be. We looked at all those cards and like Slippy's not giving you anything in LL, right? Same thing for Mario. Same thing for Huntsman. Same thing for Azalea. Azalea is like teetering on that line, right? But like, I don't think I'm not going to bank my game on drawing red in the ledger. I'm just not going to do it. Then we have Betsy. Then we have Bravo. Then we have, these are fine. Dash IE, Dory. Enigma is trolling as well, which is crazy to say. But I actually think it's true. This deck is trolling. This deck is not trolling. Not trolling. Icelander's fine. Jarl is a meme. Kano is good. Kansu's a meme. Good. Meme. Meme. Because you're a warrior. Meme. In LL. In case Ethan's got debatable. You got cash in with gold, but likely a meme. You got this deck sucks. This deck sucks. This deck sucks. Yeah, this deck is not for LL. There's gonna be a lot of heroes in this. Actually, we're thinning really quickly, but it is what it is, right? Like it just is what it is. Um, Reinar is an actual joke. So is Riptide and LL. I know the one topped when everybody was just playing their CC deck in LL. Yeah, I know it did really good. You got me. You got me. Victor's a meme. Verdance, I think is a meme. Format be too quick. Azuri's a meme. Tough Nut, get the fuck out of here. As much as I love you, get the hell out. Okay. Vinny, I know it hurts, but Vinny's got to sit on the sideline for quite some time. Okay, so I think we've actually narrowed down to like heroes that you could theoretically bring to a competitive event and you were not just donating your entry. Okay. So we threw it and some of the look, I want to preface this like some of these heroes are kind of like on that borderline, right? Like maybe there's a berserk Leviathan going on. Probably not, but you see what I'm saying? Like there might be an archetype within these hero where you're breaking on the edge of like, you know, actually being playable. But because we're doing the initial analysis of the format, we have to filter pretty thin, right? Because we're trying to actually analyze who's going to be impacting the meta, not just, who we think can actually do something, right? So let's go ahead and just fill up the aggro line. We're just going to slap all the quote unquote aggro decks and kind of just see where they land, right? So Aurora would land there, Briar, Chain, Syndra, Dromai. I think you are value exchange now because you lost Zephyr Needle. Ironically enough, I think Lexi actually would fit in the value exchange as well. And I think it would be New Prism would be aggro. And Zen would be aggro. Okay, I think we have all the aggro decks laid out. Oh, sorry. I left one out. Let's see. I'm gonna double check, make sure. I think this is value exchange. Most of our decks are gonna be aggro. Who knew? That's just kind of how it is, right? And so now what we can do is go ahead and once again, these are not ranked in any order. We're not there yet. We're just trying to label which heroes are in which category. And then from that point on, we analyze each category. Okay. We say, like, inside the aggro section, what's doing better than what, so on. Right. And I think that in disruptive, we're going to put new. We are actually, call me crazy, We're actually going to put Starvo in disruptive because I think that's his main avenue for uh, actually generating the amount of value that he can produce is the on hits with Winter's Well. The shield is enormous in this format specifically. And yeah, it just is what it is, right? And do we have any more disruptive decks? Icelander could, I guess she has to go there for because she's not way back in the day, right? With Bullander and things like that, like you would go in value exchange, right? But because you can't just throw 2 for 8s in LO. It's not gonna fucking happen, okay? And it is literally not gonna happen. So I think that she has to lean on her ability to disrupt. Period. She just has to. And so I think she lands in the disruptive category for that reason. I think the only way that you would actually play KO is Berserk KO. That's the only thing that logically makes sense. If you're just going to take normal KO, you're just absolutely trolling. So that would fall into combo non-interactive. So with this, so with this, so with this, and so with this, and there we go. And then the rest of these would fall under value exchange. Okay, so we have all of our heroes in their respective categories in which they are trying to compete, right? And so the way that I like to kind of approach this is first you have to start with the aggro. And the reason for that is you need to know what's the fastest because the fastest deck is going to set the timeline of turns. And then also like what you need to combat that. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this aggro section. Okay. So once again, we're going to pull up our change and like how it affects. Okay. So currently we have Succumb, which is going to affect Chain, right? We have Bonds, which is going to affect Zen. We have Somersault's going to affect Aurora a little bit. Not a big deal. She only loses 2 cards because you only played the reds anyway. So not a huge deal there, but some impact, right? And then Cole, obviously, for Chain as well. And then Zephyr Needle's going to take a hit on the ninjas, but I think they're fine. Carrying Husk as well. And then Crown of Seas is going to be a huge one, but that's not aggro. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. And as far as what we can play in the format that is not legal in LL, that kind of sets our delta for the format, is going to be what are our aggro cards? Ball Lightning, Art of War, Belittle. We have Cash In. We have not Tipple. High Octane for Dio. So we're just kind of we have Plunder Run. That's something to consider, right? And then Stubby Hammers is a big one as well. Do not underestimate this card. And then we have the toolkit of the books. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our actual labeling, and now we're going to discuss the aggro decks. Okay, this is going to this might be bad news for some, but I think, in my opinion, you are absolutely trolling if you bring these 2 Rune Blades. It pains me to say this, but I actually think Briar's better than Chain now because she can actually have a turn. I want to spend a moment on explaining why diplomacy is such a big deal. Okay? It's not, I'm not dooming and glooming just because they have, I want to explain it, okay? Because somebody is going to sit there and say, oh, well, diplomacy existed in the format when Briar was legal and she did just fine. I would agree with you. But what you have to look at in this format, right? The power level is higher. Fair statement. So if that is the case, when you have something that is higher power, you typically have a shorter game length, okay? Historically. And if that's the case, then what happens is in Classic Constructed, back when Briar was legal and Diplomacy was also legal, if you were to resolve one and maybe it trips her up and she loses, let's say 6 value because she has to go rabble into thorn or something, right? Instead of rabble into another 4 into another whatever. You see what I'm saying? So she loses like a net 6 or 7 value. Well, she probably has, depending on the matchup, she could have anywhere between 4 to 7 to maybe even 8 turns to make up that value delta, right? That she lost from that card. In LL, that runway shrinks, okay? And so if anybody resolves a diplomacy against you, you just lose, right? I like, are some people going to win some games? Sure. But what I'm saying is you do not have as long to make up that said value that you lose. Oh, and guess what? Let's say you play out of your ass, right? Or your opponent gives you the opportunity to extend the game. Guess what? They'll play a second one. And then you have to do it again, right? So like it's a very, very bad place to be in right now. And the sad part is like if Runeblade was way up here, it would still mathematically make sense. But if you put these Runeblades here up again, like in the now, against these other decks like Dio, Zen, Syndra, Dromite, like you are not doing something above and beyond what they are doing to offset just getting completely shut down by a card. It just does not make sense. Now, there is one factor that could change this, and this is one of the things that we have to test. When the format settles a little bit, there are decks that can play diplomacy at a really low opportunity cost, and then some that play it at a very high opportunity cost. If the meta is dominated by decks that cannot conveniently play that card or play it to a level of impact, and what do I mean by that? If a ninja goes attack, 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 and you just take 12, 13, 14 damage, and then they play a diplomacy, you lose the game. If a deck kind of blocks out and then plays one, it's not as bad. It still can be absolutely catastrophic. That play line is basically like resolving a failing. It's like just free guaranteed tempo almost. So you kind of look at that as a not a 1-to-1, but like the idea and the premise is kind of equal, right? Which is still really fucking good. You know, failing's a hell of a card, right? So, but there's some decks that like it actively hinders them, right? Like other Rune Blades, things like you just don't know, right? Like as an example, let's say Lexi just takes off and just dominates the meta, right? Well, Lexi's probably not going to play diplomacy, right? So that would kind of allow these decks to kind of edge up. Right now, I'm a doubter. Okay, I would love to just throw Briar at the top, but it's just not. It's just it's just not it. Um, Warmongers is good, but Runeblade is still on top. I'm gonna have to disagree with that. Like I'm just gonna have to, because there's no way that I'm gonna pass up on playing a ninja that has Mask of the Pouncing Lynx in like a guaranteed 7 damage, 5 to 7 damage in the head slot just to play Runeblade. Oh, and Stubby Hammers that can give me like 5 value on the equipment. But Ninja has Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, Stubby Hammers, and also has like a good chess piece. Like there's so many options, right? And then of course you can always go a dagger build and go up sticks and runs, whatever the case may be, right? The only thing that could happen, Dylan, to your point of saying that Runeblade is still on top, if Starvo gets so much value from the shield, then that is so if like let's say Syndra is just better than Zen, right? I'm just saying that hypothetically. I'm not saying that that's the case. Then like Starvo could literally bully this deck out of the format because you get 14 value off the shield, right? Um, so that's just kind of how I'm looking at it. And right now, like I would rather play, I think, and then Dio also suffers from the diplomacy as well. I think Dio was actually Chain Chain was obviously the best deck before the ban. Well, Needle, Ninja, and Chain were the de facto best decks in LL before the ban change. Now I think you just lose way too much on Chain. I just don't think, and it's to be honest, it's solely on the back of the Ninja matchup because Chain cannot sustain a take 12 damage to have unless maybe there's a way that you can play the matchup and just keep small hands all the time and just do your rune gate thing, maybe. But what happens when you shackle a bunch of cards out, you take blood debt, and the ninja player is smart enough to like put pressure on your life total to where you can't get the cards out of blood debt. It just against really good players, they know how to manipulate those situations. And so and I do agree with Viscerai. Viscerai is the only, and that's why I said earlier that I agree with the fact that Viscerai is the best Runeblade currently. And to be honest, I think Viscerai, in the way that he will be shifting, will be completely unaffected by diplomacy. Not unaffected, but uh, his deck list is extremely going to pivot. I'll get to that in a second. So this is I'm not a fan of these decks right now. This is the one deck that I just don't know what the fuck's going on. It seems like there maybe isn't a lot of power there. I'm not sure. I don't know what the advantage like this just seems too strong. I don't know if you would really play this. Um I mean, what do you I guess let's answer this question. You get Tome of Divinity, okay? Is that really changing anything? Maybe not. Okay, I think we're going to I don't think it's trolling, but it's not good. or just not like amazing. Um, so let's talk about Aurora. So for Aurora, I think that the best thing that you could possibly be doing is the combination of Tome of Findel and Arc Lightning. I think that card combination is literally why you would play this deck. If you are not playing that card combination, stop playing this deck. There's no card combination that can extract enough value in LL in her card pool other than those two cards together. The downside to that is she does not have the ability she doesn't have the agency to delay the game to get to those pieces. If you get it, it's absolutely fucking amazing, right? And so that's, that's one thing that we have to factor in. So I think that card combination, and maybe there's some ways that you can manipulate it. Maybe you run Crown of Dominion and you run cash-ins to like just zip through the deck, right? And you're just trying to like go go go. Um, I could see you're giving up a lot of value in the form of like, well, I guess she can't run the non-attack suite to support base purgatory because of diplomacy. So yeah, I think she's going to run Crown of Dominion and cash in to speed through to get Tome of Findel Arc Lightning combo. And I think that combo is what's going to elevate this hero to be playable in LL. Is it like the top tier deck? I would say that if you get it, it is. If you don't, then it just falls really, really short. And because you depend on it, I'm going to have to put her in like the middle of the road, like somewhere around here. I would say maybe D. I guess this is yeah. Tio, you just get digged on by diplomacy though. I'm gonna put it like this, but I'm not confident in the order of these. Okay, we'll put it that way because this is just a rough analysis. And once again, this may change once we look at these and see where they line up. So we're doing an initial pass through on just innate card pool, things like that. And then we're gonna say, okay, if Starvo's at the top, then like it shits on Syndra, so she moves down a little bit. And we'll just kind of tailor it from there. I'm just kind of showing my process from start to finish, just so you can see um, kind of how I do it. I think Dromai is a really good pick, or a strong deck, right? It does something that's fundamentally powerful. It's very, very aggressive. It also establishes a board state, which is like a really, really good combination. The question is, can it compete with ninjas? Probably not. Uh, I'm sure there's like 14 Dromai players that are going to argue against that, and that's fine. But I don't know if it can really stand up to it. I'm not convinced. So I think that this is roughly the order, it may beg the question of why the fuck is Syndra here. Well, there's a lot of fucking cards that say draw cards, right? Tome of Firebrand. That's a card that was very hard to execute with a lot of heroes like Fi. You know, it was very inconsistent and things like that. But when you get a deck like Syndra, a lot easier to do that with kunais, right? It's not that hard to get to that chain link, and so you just have another Artivore, and it's actually really fucking good. The problem is you literally lose to a piece of fucking equipment. Uh, the shield, whatever it's staglamite, whatever the fuck it's called. I do think Icelander is bad, by the way. Yes, but she's at least fringe playable. Okay. Um, I do agree. I do agree. So this is kind of that's why I would put Zen above Syndra, is because I think they do something that is comparable in power, but there's just a glaring weakness of that fucking Ice Shield against Syndra. I'm telling you, you will get so much fucking value from that. I mean, I'm telling you, every game, 12, 13. It's just wild. It is absolutely wild. Okay. So let's go to the disruptive category. I think it's very easy to say that the order here, in my opinion, would just be swapping these two. I think Starvo's a little bit better because that shield, the Ice Shield, is wild. And it's also just going to be the default answer because we're no longer pitching into Crown of Seeds because it's banned. So you're just running Ice Shield into everything, right? And unless you're on like some fatigue list with staunches or stuff like that, or you have a sideboard, whatever. But the main like premise of the deck is going to be the Ice Shield and then a bunch of disruptive attacks, right? You have things like Concuss and things like that. But like the new deck is actually pretty viable. New is dead too. I don't agree with that one. She lost a lot of points with CYB, but the just straight disruptive, like zero, believe it or not, it's actually kind of good. I'm gonna be honest. Is it like the strongest thing you could be doing? No, it's not. But like I would not think somebody is absolutely trolling if they brought new. Yeah, Mark new is basically the way to do it. And you just have way more on hit effects. It's very disruptive, is all I'm saying. Um, so I think the deck is perfectly fine. You would not be trolling if you actively brought it. Hot take, new didn't need CYB. I 100% agree with what you're saying, but I think she lost a lot of points because people were putting bad cards in their deck because they thought new could run CYB. So if I was going to bring new to an event 4 weeks ago, I wouldn't have had CYB in my deck, but my opponent did not know that. And so they play bad cards or they have a different strategy that's not a good against just going fucking face and being very, very, very disruptive. So that's kind of where my thought process is with new as well. So I 100% agree with you. But just losing that equity of the opponent not knowing what, and news ultimate value, the ultimate value of where news disruption lands is how hard do hands scale in LL. So if I'll give you an example. So in CC, let's say that like the things are very linear, right? Like every card is worth 3.5 on average, right? But in LL, like cards start at 3, but if you have a whole hand, then they can scale up to like 6 per card. That's a little extreme, but maybe like 5 or something like that. kind of like with Viscerai, right? Like if you play non-attack, 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 that's a lot of fucking rune chance, right? And so you can kind of accumulate a lot of that value. So really, her viability is going to depend on how hard the hands scale. If there's any linear aspect, and I know people are going to like jump to the conclusion that everything's going to be exponential in LL, and that may be not the case. You could have everything be linear, but just higher, right? Maybe the base is like three value in CC, but now the base is 3.5 in LL, right? Just because we're going into LL does not mean hands scale exponentially, and also it's going to be very hero dependent as well. So that's something that um, we have to actively you know, keep an eye on. And Icelander, I think, is just not gonna be able to compete. I think she's like fringe playable, but she just like I thought the CYB Icelander was actually a very innovative deck, and I thought it could have actually went some places, but they got rid of that. Hypo was cool, but like a lot of these decks have automatic go again, and even if you like pull off a cheeky hypo, I just don't think it's enough. And then you also are going to get dumpstered about anybody that strips your hand, like New or Starva. And like I don't even think you beat Zen. He's got the blues to push through, still put on the damage. Just I don't know what you're beating with this deck. It's not that it's bad, it's that I don't know what you're actively like targeting. Um, I could be wrong on that, but that's just kind of where I'm feeling with Icelander in this current moment in time. Once again, I want to preface that this is preliminary. We are just setting the stage on the questions that we need to answer to then define the format. I just want to take everybody on a step by step of my process of doing that for a new format. Okay, so let's go non interactive combo. For this category, I have to break down what the combo is and why the hero is not interactive. I mentioned earlier that the only viable LL version of KO is Berserk. If you're just playing normal KO, you are absolutely trolling. Like it's a strong deck, it does the thing, but like you could literally play any of these other heroes and have a way better chance. Maybe not Ira, but like it just you need to be playing two Berserk. Period. That's the way you play KO and LO. Kano is just fucking Kano, right? You do not have what is it? Pour the Pages. What's that fucking card that is still banned or restricted to one? Open the Floodgates. That's what I meant. That's the draw two if on surge effect, right? So you only get one of those, but you have your wildfires, you have your tomes. Tome is the big card that Kano utilizes in LL, obviously. And I think that Kano is absolutely strong in LL, like just really, really fucking good. You got tomes, you don't have open the floodgates, but you know, you still have a copy. I mean, we'll take what we can get, right? So I think he's really strong. But he's just doing the Kano thing, right? But the Kano thing just happens to be really fucking good in LL, obviously. Now we have a Celia. Now this is an interesting one because he got kind of dinged on the electromagnetic somersault, but he does have some options like I don't fucking know. Maybe ball lightning has some equity, probably not. But oh yeah, I mean he should play ball lightning, but um, you know you don't gain a lot from the missing cards other than tome. So you have Tome of Aetherwind, which is a new way to draw cards if you have a surplus of action points. Um, Trying to think of anything else. Plunder One's cute. I don't think he'll actually run it. Um, and yeah, you could run. You absolutely need your head slot. I don't think you do. So you could run like just a Degen, Cashian, Tome. That seems kind of good with ball lightning. Okay, I'm sold. Seems good. And yeah, so that's just what he's trying to do. He's trying to do the Acilio combo with extra tomes. Like that's what he's trying to fucking do. Okay. and then Viscerai. So let's take a second to talk about Viscerai, okay? So we saw Nova Chan's list that he took down the Battle Hardened with, and then that's what I'm not saying that that's what prompted. I'm just saying shortly after, uh, that's when we got the change or the bans, right? And he was on just Giga Aggro, Cash In, Viscerai, right? Just balls and walls, all aggro. With like a mini Sonata potential combo. And now all of that's gone. Okay, so his deck list, in my opinion, like you just can't do that. I mean, you can. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to tell players what they can and can't do. I'm just saying that you are literally rolling the dice on your opponent, not drawing a one of three cards. And I'm not comfortable running that. I would rather just play fucking, kind of what we saw at the end of Vis's existence, that very blocky, non-interactive, just doing my own thing, good luck. But you also have like the giga combo of Skeleton, right? And with Sonata, obviously. So I kind of like taking that angle with Viscerai, in my opinion. Mark New was unplayable in CC. What makes it playable now? Well, I kind of broke that down by like how hard the hand scale. That's what her viability is going to be kind of dependent on. It wasn't unplayable. The EV and exploring it wasn't worth it. That is correct. She was on her way out, so that is fair. She also just got a very relevant new majestic. Did, did she? I don't know. Oh, you're talking about not the Arachne card. No shot. I wouldn't call it relevant, but sure. Okay. Um, I guess you can transcend on it. That's fair. It's not a specialization, right? I don't think it is. Um, so yeah, I like Viscerai taking a more defensive combo posture. Because you completely negate all aspects, not all aspects, but like a huge amount of like the diplomacy aspect. And you just kind of blow them up. So basically, for those of you that played a lot back in the day, um, Oldhim is kind of trolling, to be honest. I think Starvo is better, but I don't think he's like Well, no, he doesn't have Crown of Seeds. Fuck, you're right. Um, you're actually right because for some reason I was thinking like Crown, like you could just do like some degen fatigue, but no, like it's actually trolling. You would have to go here. I mean, Ice React, is that enough? Taking a card from somebody's hand, but then like, what the fuck are you doing? Just Winter's Welling? I'd rather have the potential to come over the top. Earth React is completely useless in this format, so you have to go Ice Base. That makes you a little bit weaker. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you gotta go Starvo. Yep, I agree. I agree. I'm sold. If Ice gets real cards. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of like the direction I like on Viscerai is basically defensive posture combo. Florian is doing the exact same thing, just with Germinate. He's literally just doing he's super defensive. He is making rune chance and he's discounting Germinate to make it cheap. Literally the exact same thing, just a different card pool and different. So like ultimately, I think like one of these decks exist, not both. It's going to be whichever one just does the thing better. Do you want to like gain life along with kill them, or do you want to kind of like just do you not have forever and you kind of got to blow them up? That's going to determine whether the players play Vis or Florian. Overall, I think Vis is going to take more equity in the format just because I think it's more enjoyable. Two, I think that some of these decks are just going to be too strong, and you're going to need that potential to really pop off by turn, say 3, 4, something like that, which Viscerai has And Florian really needs to take the game to like 7, 8, 9, 10 turns. So really, the length of the average length of game is going to determine which one of these are better. But currently, I'm leaning Viscera. So we've explained the non-interactive aspect slash combo of all these heroes. I'm going to go ahead and rank them. So I think Kana is probably going to be on top with these, probably coming in at this order. Probably a Celio above Florian, but could change. So we now have these sorted in power from left to right now, factoring in diplomacy, obviously, with these rune blades here. And then we also have, we've sorted these and kind of defined. Now, Gravy is interesting, right? Like he's trying to do the value exchange. You have cash in, you have your tipples back. The question is like, first of all, let's just make things easy, right? We're gonna put Prism at the top because that's just like how the fuck it's gonna happen, right? And I'll explain why. Um, Gravy is cool. He does a thing. He lost to CYB. That was kind of a. There was like this really cringe fucking. You could like scuba the yellow CYB and like loop it, and it was so cringe that you could just loop CYB. That is actually the most grossest thing ever. Wait, how is Zen not in non-interactive combo? Uh, because it's an aggro deck. I mean, you could argue that any deck is not interactive to a certain extent, right? Why is Zen non-interactive combo? You're gonna have to explain that one to me. Why would Zen land in non-interactive in combo? You can block him. He's not looping bonds. Bonds is limited to one, right? Or did I miss the memo? Let's go to LL. Living Legend. Bonds of Ancestry. Restricted to one copy. So you're not looping bond. If you had 9 bonds, like, okay, I get what you're saying, right? They're just like blowing you the fuck up. I get it. But you only got one. It's not like that big. So you're gonna have to define that one from me because I don't fucking get it. But Gravy, it's solid, but we get what it's doing. You got cash in for a little bit of speed. That is overall the big change for the deck. And um, you could even go like belittle package because you have a lot of blues that support it. Like there's some options. The problem is uh, the allies are like not sticky enough. They're not strong enough, and there's so many decks that just have a natural ability to combat what you're actively trying to do. Um, Zen does want to break stubbies and go ham, but he's not like looping shit, right? So like, yes, he's gonna have a big turn. He's gonna mask the pouncing links or traverse, whichever one's applicable in the matchup. And he's gonna stubbies and he's just gonna do his 30 damage turn. What he does after that, who knows? But like you could theoretically withstand that and then see what happens, right? I wouldn't call it non-interactive. He's just an aggro deck. That's what he's trying to do. Um, Ira, I think, is like legitimately no reason to play her now that Zephyr Needle is gone. Like actually, uh, I don't think she's fast enough to actually compete on the axis of aggro, and I think that you have to have some. And we're going to get into this with Lexi. Being a value exchange deck in LL, you have to have more than just numbers. And if you notice, half of these decks in the value exchange category have board states. And that is because you literally have to have something else. You cannot, nobody gives a fuck about Flick Flack, okay? It's cool. You got your 2 card 9. Like, congratulations. Nobody gives a shit. There are people that are going to blow you up on turn 3, right? Does not fit. And I'm not trying to doom and say that the format is, you know, a 3-turn format. That is not what LL is currently. But what it is a swingy hot mess is what the format is. And so when things are swingy, that means that there are power turns. And if all you're doing is like a little above rate in math, that all of that just gets washed out by like a good turn, right? It just like just don't do it. Just okay. Just don't do it. Okay. Um. So yeah, that's where we're at with Ira. I think that she's like not the place to be. Okay. Um. t- Take your flick flacks and go somewhere else. Nobody cares. Um. And so Lexi is actually, if you kind of break it down, it's like the same premise, but mainly on offense, and there's no like defensive reliability there. So if you break down what Lexi does, it's a very consistent deck that has on hits that generates upwards of like 14 to 16 value on offense on average per turn with a full hand. And then you have some power turns with Three of a Kind, and you have, your some people went crazy with like Art of War and stuff like that. And so she does have a little bit of potential. I think she's a little bit better than Gravy, especially now that CYB's gone. I think that's the one thing that Gravy kind of got hit by the most. And he also doesn't like diplomacy, by the way. And so, yeah, I think that Lexi has good numbers. She does a thing. And the question is it enough? Right. And is there a deck like Starvo that's going to be able to fatigue her? Because that, I'm sure you could theoretically build an Ice Lexi list that's going to literally destroy everything in the aggro category. I'm sure that deck exists. The problem is then you are going to fold into everything in the disruptive category. And that's just how, and then probably board state as well. And then it's just, and then the combo non-interactive decks are going to eat you alive, right? So Lexi's going to be a very meta-oriented pick, depending on how much she leans into the ice package or how much she leans into value. And the problem that I see is like if it's just an aggro sea, it's just a sea of aggro. Lexi could do really well because you could just build an ice package and kind of take it from there. If that does not happen, which is what I anticipate, I don't think the value angle is enough. I just don't think it's enough. Okay. That's my opinion. So, did I mention Ira's dog shit? No, I'm just kidding. She's just such a Toyota Corolla, not even a Camry, right? Just like old reliable, but just, nothing exciting. Nothing exciting. Good old Corolla Ira. Um, Levia goes back to SS tier when she gets Art of War. Okay. Right, because because she accumulated so many LL points with Art of War. I forgot. My bad. My bad. Oh man, that's too good. That's too good. I respect the dedication. Okay, I respect. I respect. It's misplaced, but I respect it. Okay. So we have everything laid out and we have it in the categories, not considering how the other categories interact. So we looked at just every aggro deck and kind of said on a general axis, what are the power levels, and we kind of ranked them, right? Hey, some of us do drive to. Oh, I love Toyotas and Hondas. That is all I drive. Okay. Um, but this format is Lambos and Ferraris. Okay, so just a different party. Okay, it's just a party that we didn't get invited to. Is all I'm saying. But I'm all about Toyota, bro. Fuck, I'm trying to get a car to 300,000 miles. Is all I'm saying. Okay, so we got everything ranked by category. Problem is, we have not said, okay, if Starvo is the best disruptive deck, what is he shitting on, and how does that change things in the aggro category? That's what we're trying to and we're kind of pitting these against each other. Okay, so who's the Mazda value? The Mazda, not the Mazda. Oh my god, I used to have an RX-8. That thing it was cool, but like, bro, I'm never doing rotary engines again, bro. I got lucky and I didn't have any problems out of mine, but oh, I've heard the horror stories. Oh man. Um, okay. So first thing we need to define is we 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 can kind of surmise that Starvo is going to be around. He's going to be a very prevalent deck, and we need to see what aggro decks are equipped to be able. Enigma's the Miata of decks. Does it? Does it? Miatas are fun to drive. Enigma's not fun to play. I'll let you have that one though. So Starvo, we talked about how much impact the Ice Shield's going to have and how it's going to absolutely destroy decks like Syndra. So even Dromai to an extent. I mean, I know the Dromai players will be, it's fun, it's fun. I get it, I get it. I'm just saying, when you get a whole 2 cards out of the in more, the actual block value as well from your shield, it's absolutely wild. And I know Dromai can pitch a card and then furnace, but like any turn that Dromai is pitching 2 cards in LL, you're slowing down, right? And it just gives decks an opportunity. Is that enough? I have no fucking clue. I gotta play some games, but I'm just saying that that's kind of how I'm analyzing things. Ultimately, it's probably going to be Dromai favorite in the end against Starvo, but I think Starvo is going to absolutely destroy Syndra solely on the basis of the Ice Shield. I think Zen's interesting, right? Um, without Crown of Seeds and the ability. So historically, when Starvo had Crown of Seeds, Starvo kind of shit on Zen. Just was the way it was, right? But that's because you can actually control the fuses. I think Zen will probably be not disrupted as in when I say disrupted, I mean like disruption that you cannot interact with, aka dominate, right? If Starvo doesn't dominate, or misses like 1 or 2 more over the course of a game, that's a lot of open windows for Zen to take advantage of cards like Art of War and things like that, which could actually probably not flip the matchup, but like it's not doom and gloom like it used to be. So if anything, that's a lot of points for Zen. Okay. Aurora is not going to look good. Okay. Very vulnerable to disruption, and you're relying on getting there. So you're actively trying to like play this little middling game until you get there, which would have me a little bit worried. And then he's going to slot in perfectly fine diplomacy to kind of fuck up all these other decks. Chain used to be the giga counter to Starvo. Like if you wanted to beat Starvo, well, other than Florian, that was another kind of way to combo it or counter it. Chain was like the best aggro deck to beat Starvo, but now I just don't know if you lost Husk, you lost Cole, I mean, just so much of your toolkit. And then now they have 3 diplomacies, right? It just I I don't know. Although Dromai players seemingly have the biggest copers of any hero, even other limited. Yeah, I do agree, but I do think that matchup will end up Dromai favored. I will give them the benefit of the doubt, but we'll ultimately see. Okay. Really, it's ultimately going to depend on like how blocky are the Starvos. Are they blocking because they lost Crown of Seeds and that consistency in the first cycle? Are they blocking to get to second cycle and then go fuse, blow you up, so on? Or are they just hoping they get it and they have just a lot more targets like concuss and things like that to kind of like smooth out and not have to invest as many cards into things like crippling crush and starstruck and things like that. So you kind of shrink the hand size, it gets a little bit more flexible, things like that. Um, so that's kind of what's on the table for Starvo. Those are the things that we need to answer with Starvo. Is does that deck take on the posture of leaning more defensive or just rolling the dice on a casino without Crown of Seeds, which is odd, but maybe that's the way you have to take the deck. We don't know. Or at least I don't know. And so I do think that he's going to be the best disruptive deck. That's my opinion. And then also let's look at kind of these top 3 here. And I'm going to put basically Acilio in the same category as Kano, as they're just trying to blow you the fuck up. as quickly as possible, and then he's just going to take a little bit longer to do the same thing. Uh, and how which of these decks have the ability to interact with that aspect, right? Zen is the best to handle that scenario because you have Zen State tokens, you have 12 Petal Kasaya, all of this in your toolkit to just negate rune chance, right? And now, how does that impact the wizards? Well, you're very aggressive. You have a lot of blues. You can have convenient AB. Like there's sure you can still blow him up. I get it, but like he will not run out of resources like these other aggro decks. I mean, Kano and the Syndra is going to be an absolute joke. Like he's just going to blow her the fuck up, and that's just all you're going to do, right? Dromai is probably not going to be good into Kano either, because the LL format he'll be a lot stronger, probably, um, and be able to just get there a lot quicker. And then these other decks, like so, one window where the rune blades, when I say the rune blades, I mean these three rune blades here in the aggro category can excel is historically that they've done really well into Kano because they're able to be very aggressive and they have a decent amount of blue cards, but more importantly, they don't need their blue cards, right? Zen has to play blues to play other blues, and there can be windows where you just get blown the fuck up, right? By a deck like Kano. Whereas the other Rune Blades, they just don't need the blues. Like Briar, 90% of the time you're blocking with them, right? Like you just don't need them. So that's a good recipe, and you typically have access to Spell Void and things like that. So you have a really good, you know, you have a really good combination that fits well into Kano historically. Not saying that's the case going forward. I'm just saying historically. So if Kano was ever the deck to beat, right? All these decks that get pushed down by diplomacy they gain a lot of equity. Okay, is all I'm saying. And you have decks like Syndra and Dromai that lose a lot of that set equity. So this is actually one of the decks that I anticipate. I think the presence of Kano and how well it performs is actually going to impact the format the most. Probably followed by Starvo and kind of how that deck lands. Um, these aggro decks, I think they're just trying to do their thing, and then we just have to see how each one is susceptible to the rest. I don't think like any of these are particularly going to set the format. They'll set the pace, but not just you know what the format is, in my opinion. And then Acilio, none of these particularly matter, in my opinion. I mean, Zinstake's really good against Acilio as well, just because it gets so much value. But really, I guess whoever can put Zen on the shortest clock, which would once again be Ninja, because they're the most consistently aggressive, because most of their aggression is built into their equipment, and your equipment starts in play and stays in play. Dio could be a close second just because you're just so explosive, right? But these other decks, they just take a little bit more time to get going. And that's exactly what Acilio is looking for. So once again, we're noticing a common theme that the ninjas are gaining a lot of equity from these matchups, specifically Zen. Starting to kind of just see a trend here. So does Starvo play Providence? I mean, he could. Um, it's one free crown per game, so I mean, I could definitely see it. If you're in a really tight spot, it's something you can definitely go for. In KO, I don't think is particularly viable, and that's why he's at the bottom. And I think Florian's going to be a little bit too slow for the format. And then, of course, you have the Zen problem of he can just counter with making a Zen state token. I know you can counter by playing the card that deletes auras. I get it, but like it's tough. It is tough. So let's go ahead and go into the value exchange, and we're gonna probably kind of ignore the last two. I don't think they just really fit in. Um, I think they just do something that's like fundamentally powerful and able to be entertained in the format, but I don't think they're actually setting any kind of standard for the analysis of the format. And then I also mentioned earlier how we were kind of waiting on where Lexi needs to go, so we can't really analyze her. So now we get to Prism. Okay, now Prism has historically been really, really good into like things like Kano, and but bad into the things that are very aggressive, like Zen and uh, God, what is? I guess just aggro because you don't have the ability to like push like New Prism, right? You don't. New Prism has always been really good in aggro, and the other old Prism is kind of like the opposite, where that's like your weakest matchup. So I think what she is depending on and what she's kind of seeing is basically how much time does she have to play the game? If most of the format are these decks, right? Then this deck becomes a lot better. But if the format is are these decks, then it begins to run into problems. Don't get me wrong, Old Prism can still compete with those aggro decks. It's not like you're just getting ran over. It's not no 90-10. You might have some 70-30s, might have some 60-40s, but like she can still play ball. She does something that's extremely powerful and fundamentally powerful. Oh yeah, Tome Arclight, ridiculous, right? So she still does really powerful things and she can extract on that value. So ultimately, what she's doing is she's sitting on the sidelines and waiting for is it her opportunity in regards to the meta. So assuming that basically everything that we have talked to indicated that Zen was the best ninja, right, by far, because you had more play into Starvo, not the best, but more play. You play better into the combo decks because you have the combination of blue resources for the wizards and you have Zen state tokens for the rune blades. So the toolkit there is really, really good. Why is Riptide in trolling tier? My boy top aided an LL Pro Quest plus for Riptide. Okay. I hope we don't have to visit this again. I that's absolutely troll. It is actually trolling. There's no way. I wasn't there. I just envisioned everybody just played their CC deck. What on this list, okay, of cards that you can play that are banned in Classic Constructed that you can now play in LL that helps Riptide? Can't play the tomes. Nope. Talk Big Game. Nope. Stubby. Nope. Scepter. Nope. Okay, you can play Plunder. Congrats. Plume. Nope. 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 Drone. Sure. It's like anti-fatigue if you're like, what? Sure. Maybe it's like very cash in. Okay, you can play cash in. If you want to go like giga wide rain razors into Bolton shots, like kind of loose, but like okay, I understand. But no, you need New Horizons, so you can't even like start with the golden play. So that's not even the thing. So yeah, there's none of these fucking just ran back as yeah most receipts. Yeah, so like the fact that Riptide top aided is like actually troll. No disrespect to whoever did it. I'm just saying that it was an LL result when nobody was like actually investing in LL, right? Everybody was just kind of chilling. You know? When Dash.io being non-interactive, didn't you see the game where it took like 20 minutes to turn and to and draw like 10 cards? So yes, you're referring to the Sam Sutherland Worlds. Yeah, yeah. I have seen that. And that is how that deck was played in that format because the format was a lot slower. You had decks like oh god, what was in that format? I'm trying to even remember. Um it was High Octane was around. It was Icelander, Bravo, right? Yeah, it was Icelander, Bravo, Dromai. So a lot of the decks like Icelander and we'll use Icelander and Bravo as an example. If that's the meta, you can't just charge in head first. You have to like have a sideboard that allows you to just like build up and blow them up, right? And that's what Sam Sutherland did. He just had like a switchboard where he would just swap in some items that allowed him to just have one massive turn. So you can play the deck like that to achieve certain game states. But in LL, you're just trying to win the game as fast as possible. And I guess to your point, he could land in um there is a world where Dio, much like how we talked about Lexi having whether they were trying to participate on the axis of value or ice disruption, you could be right. Maybe these decks take over the format and you have to build Dio in a way to where you focus on big explosive, you know, just big explosive turns. So that could be how it dissolves. But from what I know now, it seems like just the best way to play it is just aggro, in my opinion. Um, uh, I dropped this. We don't need to talk about it. Oh man, not cash in Marlin best deck in format. We'll see. We'll see. No, draw my best deck. Yeah. Oh man, I've heard that a million times, and I even got baited to play it and calling it to. I will say that deck's really fun to play. So all in all, this is what we're looking at for once again, this is not a tier list on power or anything like that. All I'm saying is we have set up the questions that we now have to answer. Okay? So we have figured out that Riptide is dog shit, right? We have figured I'm just gonna keep going. Oh man, it's too good. No, but we have figured out that like we are waiting for the answer of is Starvo leaning defensive or is he going casino? That's something. How does that fit into what is existent on the screen? Right? That's something we have to answer. What are we gaining and losing equity into by choosing one or the other? Okay. Zen is gonna do his Zen thing. Doesn't fucking matter. But can Cinder do it a little better if there is no ice? Right? Those are questions that we're waiting on. Dromai, we're trying to figure out how much cope the Dromai players can obtain before they explode and actually win a game or a tournament. I'm just saying, just throwing mad shade all of a sudden. But I do kind of like it. And yeah, and then Aurora players are going to realize that the combo is very cute, but then they're going to realize that, by the combo, if anybody's new joining me, I'm talking about Tome of Findale and Arc Lightning. If they do have the ability to actually play games and not just hate their life when they don't draw that combination of cards. And maybe there's a unique way to actually just push and kind of get there a lot quicker. Like I mentioned, cash in, Crown Dominion kit, whatever the case may be. Maybe it works. I don't fucking know. I just don't like playing a format and relying on one or two cards if my deck fundamentally does not allow me to speed through my deck, which I don't think Aurora would fit in that category because you even have a lot of cards that can jeopardize that and make you shuffle. Skyward Serenade, things like that are actively going to make you shuffle your deck and could put you even farther away from the cards you're trying to obtain. We talked about how the Rune Blades and Dio are really affected by diplomacy, astronomical amounts, and how you just don't have the runway to kind of really get back up to speed and recover from that lost value, unfortunately, in the format of LL. And so, from the disruptive category, we already talked about it, but we also mentioned that if there was a situation where Kano really took off in the format, that opens the window for these decks. Also, if the decks that are relevant in the meta have a higher opportunity cost to play diplomacy, then these three decks shoot up immediately to the top. Chain probably immediately becomes the best aggro deck, or might go right behind Zen or something like that. If that situation kind of cultivates, right? But we're waiting for that answer, right? So that's something, once again, that we have to go seek out and kind of figure out with testing and things like that. I'm just building the canvas. We're not painting shit yet. I'm just building the canvas. And then we realized that Icelander was just not going to cut it. Disruption is really good, but she's waiting to be figure out how hard the hands actually scale in the LL, and also kind of determine who are people actively blocking, because if they're blocking, then the deck doesn't do so well. It really needs to lean on that disruption to really get the high amounts of value. And then Kano, yeah. How well does it fit? How many people are putting him on a clock? Are people giving him more than 4 or 5 turns, or are people giving him way more and allowing him to stack? That's ultimately what's going to rely on him. Do people give the breathing room to Viscera to make rune chance? Can he make enough in X amount of time? Or some questions that we're trying to answer. But I think he'll be a good natural counter for decks like Starvo. So very interested to see how that plays out. But can he go toe to toe with Zen? That's the ultimate question. And Acilio, people are not going to be playing this deck. They're going to be arguing how cards interact in the judge chat. So not really relevant, but solid pick if people would actually play Flesh and Blood. And then Florian, I think the format's just going to be a little too fast, and he's not going to have the time. I could be wrong there, and we'll see how that kind of unfolds. But it'll be interesting to see it. And then Berserk KO, you're just kind of doing it for the memes and for the fun, and saying, "Can I draw it?" And if you do, cool. You get to do something exciting and cool. But if not, sit on the sidelines or the side events. Um, Once again, Prism waiting on how much aggro is going to be relevant to kind of get her window, and then we've already talked about Lexi, how she's waiting to go whether to go value or ice, and then these two are kind of maiming because Ira is the Toyota Corolla of Flesh and Blood decks. So that's currently where we're at on our initial analysis of Flesh and or of not Flesh and Blood, the Living Legend format. That is currently where we're at, and so these are some of the questions that we have to answer. We have to calibrate. So I'm going to do some, testing and figure out what the fuck is going on for Worlds, because this is a large portion of it. I don't know if a lot of people are kind of realizing it yet, but this is a massive part of Worlds. We saw so many people that made it to the top 8 of large events like Pro Tours and Worlds solely on the back of um, draft. Now, I think in this upcoming tournament at Worlds, the opposite will be true. This is where you will take your losses, and the people who perform exceptionally well in the CC environment are going to actually top 8. That's my opinion. And typically that's rooted in how much agency skill has in certain formats. And I'm not saying the LL is not skill intensive. I'm just saying that there's a lot more like built-in explosive variance in the format. Not like an exorbitant amount. I'm just saying a lot more than CC. Simple as that. Not trying to dig on it or anything. I'm just saying it is what it is. Playing a higher power format. When do we get the fun tier list? Berserk is def on top. It is a very fun deck to play, but there are definitely better things to play. So that is kind of where we're at. I don't really know how to expand. Obviously, like I said, we're gonna dig into the testing. We're gonna figure things out. But this is kind of where we're at right now. I would love to hear opinions in the comments, or um, anything like that. I would love to hear people's opinion in chat. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I'd love to hear it. Ours just be a least attended Worlds if people don't feel. I'm really curious about how people take on to it. I respect LS for going all in on it. Like, I think that's what they should have done. Like, are people interested in this shit or not? At least we will get the answer. What the answer is, I have no clue. But at least we're gonna get something. Um, Higher randomness. So like there are each deck has a combination of cards that have been banned in previous formats that allow them to do stupid shit. Zen, Art of War. If you take a Zen game that did not get Art of War versus one that did, you're playing two different heroes, right? Because it's that impactful of a card. Do you play against? You sit down at Worlds, you play against a Dio. Did the Dio get high octane? Yes or no? That's going to drastically impact. It's not going to, oh, they draw high octane, they win the game. No. but like legitimately, they draw high octane, their win chance goes up 10%, 100%. Not 100%. I'm just saying 100% that it'll go up 10% is what I'm saying. I know that sounded very confusing, but you get what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are power cards that have been banned out of the game and they're now playable, and they were banned for a reason, and they have access to those cards. So it is what it is. Is there no way to fatigue an LL? Too aggressive. No, there is. There are angles, but I think you have to do it. Like, you remember back in the day when like you had to like offensively fatigue with like, I'm trying to think of a format. Outsiders Limited. You know how it always ended, like every game ended in fatigue, but it was because you were like beating the shit out of each other, and you just got down to a point to where like nobody could keep a whole hand, and you just started making these 2 card trades, and somebody just ran out of fucking cards. I think that is your most viable version of fatigue. If you're just sitting back and you're blocking as much damage, I think you're gonna get dicked on. Um, and nobody wants that. Well, I mean, maybe some do, but you get what I'm saying, okay? I think that if you are, and that's why I have new kind of where she is she's the perfect example for that, where she has the ability to be so disruptive to where she can fatigue, but she cannot do it via blocking. Sure, there's some blocking, but you just have to be super aggressive and disruptive. And that's the most important. So, yes, to answer your question, there is fatigue. It just looks a little different. It looks a little different. The only deck that truly would have the ability to fatigue, I take like Oldhim, fatigue Oldhim, right? That's like your classic fatigue. You lose to Dromai, you lose to Prism, you lose to Gravy, you lose to all of these decks. You lose to probably a really good Starvo that can pitch stack. You have Ice combo. It just ain't gonna happen. Okay. And then these decks can just accidentally kill you. Um, and CYB is gone. Yeah, you have to be disruptive. You have to be. Tier list. We can't do the tier list yet because I have to find these answers. I don't want to just talk out of my ass. Um, I want to like lay the ground here. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now, we'll do an actual LL tier list, and kind of I'll share with you what I've been able to discover on a lot of these topics and where the heroes land. I just wanted to walk people through kind of my thought process when I build these out. Um, and maybe you agree with some of it, maybe you disagree with some of it. Is what it is. I think my most prominent thought is that Iris should be put in the trolling tier. You're probably fucking right, to be honest. Um, and I did literally call her the Toyota Corolla of Flesh and Blood decks. Um, I was just trying to like pay my respects because she did really good before all the bans. But you're probably 100% right. And I literally did say that she was the worst one here, so you're probably right. Fuck it, we'll throw her away. Easy, easy money. And I'm undecided on this prism, the new prism. I don't know if it stays, if it goes. I honestly have no fucking clue. I just know it does some dumb shit, and if the dumb shit has Tome of Divinity, it does dumber shit. And doing dumber shit is a good start in LL. That's all I know. Okay, that's the math behind this decision. Okay, I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm just saying there is the opportunity for dumb shit. Okay, that's all I know. That's all I know. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to give us about 5, 10 more minutes. If the questions stop flowing in, we'll go ahead and call it. But if you have any questions, comments, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know. So far, 2 people have been right. I took Oldham and Ira straight out of it because it just didn't make sense. It literally just didn't make sense. I hope it stays. Already opened a Marvel in my second gym pack and looking to use it. Um, Oh, Prism. I thought you were talking about Fatigue. I was like, you opened a Marvel Fatigue. I would love to see this card. No, Prism. Well, I guess which Prism? Second gym pack. So that's old Prism, right? Is it old Prism or new Prism in the gym pack? I don't fucking know. But we'll see. We will see. Is Aurora ever better than just Briar? So that's actually an interesting question. And it pains me to say this. I literally have a giant Briar card right there. And I have a coffee mug in the kitchen that has the hero art plastered on the fucking side of it. I love the hero, but the problem is you have two decks, okay? And on an average turn, we're just gonna agree that Briar does the aggro thing a little bit better, right? We're just gonna de facto say that that's a factual statement. I think most people would agree. Would you rather play that or the deck that's slightly just weaker, but doesn't just auto lose into a card? Maybe I am exaggerating a little bit. It is entirely possible. I'm not I'm not saying I'm, exempt from bad takes. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying I have a hard time going to the world championship and saying, I'm betting on the person not drawing a one of three. I was 100% on board and ready to say that my opponent was not going to draw a one of one. But a one of three, the math is like not there. And they're not doing like that dumb of stuff to actually warrant it. Um, and honestly, if you were comparing Aurora and Briar, and that like I would just go to chain, right? If I'm being 100% honest, like I would probably just hop to chain if I was making that comparison. Because before the ban change, like people were like, "Oh, Briar's like the top." Like, no, she was not. A lot of people play her because a lot of people enjoy her, and she had a high representation. I don't think she was even top three. Um, Hell, I don't even know it she was top 3 Room Blade. I don't even know if she was top 2 Room Blade. Like, I don't know. I think people were just, really high on her. I know she was, like, a fan favorite for a long time, and she was in the format for a long time, and people have terrible memories of CMH, but you have a bunch of blue cards that don't really do anything, and that all support a 1 of 3 card that you may or may not draw with your blue, and yeah, you're trying to do this aggro thing and like it's cool, it's fun. It's my favorite deck ever played. But I don't know if it's enough. I really don't. I really don't. So I understand your question and it could actually be correct. Um Gravy is a bit low. Well, so let's keep in mind the tier is not like this is S, this is A. So the tiers are within um what is in that category. So yes, he is the weakest value exchange deck in my opinion. And the process or the thought process behind that is you have one, we can both agree he is not as good as old Prism. Okay. Luminaris is a card, and that card is way better than you know, she has two weapon zones. Okay. She got two hands. Okay. Gravy has a compass. So let's just get that out the way. So we know the answer to that. So really what you're saying is he's better than Lexi. Okay. I would say that Lexi's flexibility in a high power format would put her at a higher tier. The ability to actually compete on the axis of aggro by leaning more ice is actually more valuable than doing the other one. Or doing like, and I also think he's the weakest board state deck. Like honestly, like I would rather play Dromai. I would rather play Prism. I guess he's better than Enigma, sure. They should give us a third red somersault. I think that card is better than three of a kind in Lexi. I think they should give us 3 red I don't know. The card is good though. The card is really good. Why is Marlin in actually trolling? So she does get cash in, right? That is like the big advantage. And cash in, I guess theoretically would act as like a pseudo 3 of a kind. So I do see an argument there. Like I do get that. But I guess the ultimate question that has to be answered is one, how relevant is the word overpower? That's question one. Are there a lot of D-reacts in the format? Are there not? Um, if Starvo is doing a whole fucking staunch thing, like I think it's gonna dick on Marlin. My opinion, could be wrong. Um, but you know, how relevant is overpower, and then how relevant is the on hits? Those are the questions that you actually just have to answer with Marlin. I do respect the fact that you also get Art of War, so it's like a bunch of cards that really negate the need for gold because gold is how you draw and how you load and all of those things. So you have a lot more cards that actively let you draw. I get that and I respect that. Um, and typically like generating gold is the most inefficient thing Marlin does. So that's another thing that's going for. So like I get it, I respect it. It's just how relevant is the overpower and the disruption. That's what it's ultimately going to boil down to. Wait, Fi is just better than Syndra. Syndra has to play Flick in a world of stubbies. So, Shane, you have a very interesting point. And you tell me if I'm cooking here or not. Okay. The whole reason to play Draconic Ninja, in my opinion, once again, I'm more than willing to accept being wrong, is actually the ability to leverage Tome of Firebrand. And I think that leveraging that card is much easier in Syndra. Once again, I could be wrong, but I guess, God damn it, you might be right, Shane. Shit. Because you have Stubbies that works. The part that didn't factor is I was envisioning Fi before the Hunted. And I think that might be agreed. Fi just plays it better with all the 0 cost head jabs and sword with Firebrand. Okay. So we're agreeing that the card is easier to resolve in Syndra, but we're saying it's probably more impactful if we resolve it in Fi, which is a fair point. So what in this situation, also I legitimately think that like so Fi would always play Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So I guess ultimately to answer your question, Shane, can Syndra extract more value from Mask of Momentum than right? Because if the hands scale heavily in LL, which a lot of people are predicting, Mask of Momentum is actually like playable in LL. Whereas the mindset was kind of like everybody's just playing Mask of the Pouncing Lynx because it just lets you blow your load as fast as possible, which 100% on board with. But if you're actually forcing cards out of your opponent's deck in the aggro matches, that could be like more valuable than just getting more value on your headpiece, right? It's tough, right? I don't. I don't know, right? I guess that's what it boils down to. Is Mask of Momentum good in LL in Syndra? If the answer is no, I got to concede to your point. I think Fi is just a better pick. God dang it. He's right, though. We went from an aggro meta to defense disruptive meta. Now you also need armor and more people. That's a great fucking point. And that's what we have here. We talked about new, we talked about Starvo, we talked about all these things in regarding disruption. And Fi is better kitted to deal with that because you basically have a get out of jail free built into the armor. Damn. Damn, damn, damn. You're right. You're 100% right. So Syndra was better before the ban, maybe. But now because you need those other tools, Fi just takes the cake. Damn, that's a good point. Still playable, but yeah, I agree. 100% agree. Learn something every day. Learn something every day. Oh, man. See, it turns out this whole streaming thing is fake, right? I don't stream to provide information to anybody. I stream so chat can teach me. That's why we stream. No, I'm just kidding. Totally not it. But it is a nice benefit. It is a nice benefit. We'll take it. Who has the best spec card in the game? Whoa. That there's so many now though. I'm gonna say ALS. I'm gonna say ALS. That card is Spectra is actually just busted. Just busted. Simple as that. And I think ALS is Prism spec. 90% sure. Ninjas are once again the best. Ninjas are once again the best ninjas. Instead of rune blades being the best ninjas. Okay, that made way more sense when I finished your sentence. I was like, man, this is a rough start. Ninjas are being the best ninjas. Okay, got it. Learning. But no, once I read the rest of it, I was like, makes perfect sense. Okay. They are not spec. But yeah. Cheyenne spec. Oh, that's kind of based. If you could actually play it in a real hero, though. Imagine. All right. So, Shane kind of popped in and just flipped everything on its head. No, it didn't change that much, but 100% accurate. Like the armor suite is worth it. You still get to push with Stubbies and Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. You even have the new boots to get in a second sword swing to go with your what's the instance that gives all draconic attacks +1. You have a lot of things that you can kind of weave in and out there. That's really good. So yeah, 100% agree. What is that card called? Oh yeah, I have one right here. Rake Over the Coals. So it's like a little mini built-in Art of War. Pretty neat. Oh, and I found a cold foil crucible of Aetherweave just in my trunk. I just opened my trunk and there it was just in a top loader. I was like, what the hell's going on? So clearly I'm playing Kano at Worlds. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is. It's funny that even in October 2025, there are still people who think Fi is better than Syndra. Look, Shane was actually right because nobody gives a fuck about Mask of Momentum. They're just trying to blow you up in 3 turns. If you're Syndra and you have Syndra and the Starvo is literally going to be like a 10%er. Like it's going to be dog shit. You lose to the shield, you lose to a bunch of stuff. Whereas you want to swing Emberblade anyway. And a lot of time you have a free resource just chilling there, right? Because you go 3 chain links and you don't need to pay anything for the Phoenix Flame. Makes perfect. Break Rose Shock isn't a spec technically, but that card is insane. Yeah, I used to think that card was insane until New played it against me and then played a whole bunch of my other fucking cards. That shit was annoying. Didn't even think about that. Deal you arcane, you're not gonna AB it, right? Okay, they get to search their grave and put a card in their hand, and they keep going. It's actually absurd. Happened to me on stream. It took days to recover. Okay, literal days. Anyone actually play Cheyenne in Blitz? Well, actually, they are stopping Blitz at actual like tournament levels after this upcoming skirmish season. Um, they just announced it, I think, today. That it's gone after skirmish season. What 13, 14, whatever they're on. That's the last of Blitz. I'm assuming this is me just talking out of my ass. I'm assuming that um Silver Age is what's going to just take over that format. That's what I'm assuming is happening. But ultimately, we will see. Makes sense. Yep. R.I.P. Blitz. But I mean, it does make sense. I mean, I can't speak for everybody's areas, but like, I just haven't seen anything. I just haven't seen anything like relevant for Blitz in a long time. Like, I it just been a long time. Singularity may be the best specialization. His other cards just suffer because of it. It's pretty good. That's fair. But you know what beats Singularity? ALF. That's what beats it. Do. LSS ignored Blitz. You know, I agree with that statement. I don't want to, but you're probably right. The question actually is, was that the right play? And I think it was. So I think it's bad that yes, they basically just threw it to the wayside, but at the same time, I think ultimately it was the best thing for the game because Blitz as a format does not solve any the only reason, okay? The only reason that you gain by playing Blitz over CC is saving time. That is literally it. You can say different meta, that's fine. That's just literally having different metas. That's not a unique aspect of it because you could build a pile of dog shit and you would also have, guess what, a different fucking meta, right? So, like, that's the only benefit of having Blitz is you get to complete your event in less time. That's it. It's not cheaper for the players. You still have to spend your $300 on your armor. You gotta still, oh, you get to buy one less CNC. Okay, that doesn't solve the cost of entry. Nobody's not entering the game because they get to spend $700 instead of $8. That's not what's happening in the game of Flesh and Blood. If price sensitivity is an issue, it needs to be $150 to enter the game, not $600. So you just don't accomplish anything with Blitz. I'm sad to see it go. I have a lot of that's how I originally started playing this game, and I have a lot of fond memories of it. But at the same time, it literally just existed for no reason other than to your armory lasts an hour and a half, 2 hours instead of 3.5 hours. That's literally the only reason. That's it. And when you can bring in a format like Silver Age, where it's cheaper, lower cost of entry, you have the same benefit of shorter matches. I'm assuming. I don't know how fucking long the match is. I'm just assuming it's going to be a 30-minute match. It's just it just checks more boxes. It's that simple. So sucks to see it go, but I ultimately, and yes, I think they neglected the shit out of it. 100% agree with that statement. But Knowing what we know now, I think it was the right choice. I do. I think ultimately it was the right thing to do. We'll see if that is we'll see if that is the case, but I think it was the right choice. Simple as that. Blitz probably needed way more ban interaction. But they simply weren't. Oh, for sure, right? So Storm Striders lasted way too long. A whole bunch of other stuff. 100% get it. Um, you have to ask the question: Was who was Blitz designed for? 100%. The answer was for newer players, but it's so expensive. Yeah, it's exactly what I covered. 100%. 100% agree with you. So I'm curious to see how the Silver Age thing kind of takes off. The one thing that I will say that I'm a little bit nervous is there's a lot of new formats all of a sudden. And I know LL is not new, but it, to be honest, it kind of is. Like just the sentiment that I got from the community. And once again, I'm not like the arbiter of the community or I don't speak for the community. I'm just saying the vibes that I got from the community is before like 6 months ago, nobody really gave a shit about LL. It's just the truth of the matter, right? In my opinion. But now that they have said it is going to be a key process in our competitive pipeline, then now everybody's like you know, at least somewhat interested in it. And then you have Silver Age coming in, so it's like two new formats in like a half a year. I'm worried about it being like if you're a store, which one do you run? I guess you ultimately your players are gonna pick, but like you're gonna make somebody not happy, right? If you got 20 players at your armory, there's gonna be 6 of them that want to play CC. There's gonna be 4 that want to play LL because they got a new Viscerai deck, and then some people over here want to spend $50 on a deck, so they want to play Silver Age, right? Now, who the fuck do you make happy? That's what I want to see play play out, and I don't know how the fuck it ends. Or I don't know. I have no clue. I hate they're making CC version 2 with LL. I do not agree. So I get what you're saying, right? You're basically stating that it's basically CC powered up just a little bit, right? Because you're not just doing the absolute banana shit, right? 100% understand. I guess the question is, do you really want people to do the banana shit, right? Like Awakening. Do you want that card to exist in the game? Does that not just become maybe it literally just creates like a Yu-Gi-Oh format. I don't know. If somebody asked me if I want those cards in there, the answer is hell no. Um like if the choice was CC power level, new LL when it first came out, we had 8 Starvos in top 8. I would pick the middle one. That's what I would pick. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, I want to play an actual game of it doesn't feel like flesh and blood if everybody's just like slapping each other for 2 turns and then the game's over. And maybe that's what this LL format dissolves to. I have no idea. I'm just saying, I don't know. It's interesting. And I don't want people to have Awakening ever. Period. I don't care what fucking format it is. Our store does all 3? Damn, that's wild. I just don't want L to be a competitive format. Now that Shane 100% can get behind because one, I know a lot of people love limited, right? And you can only have so many formats. We can't play 14 formats at Worlds. And so like I do get that. And it does kind of remind me of the first World Championship where we had Blitz instead of or we had that small portion of Blitz in it, and it just kind of felt like the Wild West, right? And it felt like there wasn't a lot of agency on your wins, and you were just kind of a victim to the way you drew your cards and things like that. And LL does have some aspects of that, but I don't think it's that bad. But once again, we did a pre-analysis stream. We have not like dug in. So maybe it does materialize into that situation. That's entirely possible. And if that does happen, I will 100% agree with you. But I got to see that happen. Or after heavy balance, not at all. Yet this, so this unannounced ban and restricted announcement that came out of nowhere was on very limited information. Um, was it bad? Like Zephyr needles, everybody can agree with. I don't care who the fuck you are. That shit had to go. Okay. I don't care if you've been playing Ninja for 13 and a half years. No excuses. That shit had to go. Diplomacy, yes, there was an argument that Chain would have if Needles went, Chain was the best deck, hands down. No questions asked. Um, my question is that's obviously what diplomacy is combating. Nobody could make the point that Briar was holding down the format so oppressive. Like that was not the case, right? And Viscera wasn't doing that. So Chain was the only thing. The point I'm trying to make is Chain is what necessitated, and maybe Dio, uh, the diplomacy unban or unrestriction. And they just unbanned Dirge. So they buffed him and then they were like, fuck, we gotta bring him back down, but we can't like undo the thing we just undid. Cause that I don't know. I'm speculating here, but it just seemed I don't know. I don't know if diplomacy was the right answer. If you had to do it to bring Dio in line, maybe, maybe, but I don't know. Diplomacy feels like a shit way to win a game and a shit way to lose a game. But at the same time, if we put our dev hat on and we sit there and say we can't have people just going on a whim playing high octane and doing whatever the fuck they want or Chain doing whatever he wants or whatever. Like you would have to go through each hero. You have to ban high octane. You'd have to ban Dirge again. You'd have to ban this card. And guess what? Then we're in CC. we are actually back. So um like maybe diplomacy wasn't the right ban, but it was the only ban. Like maybe that's the situation that we're living in and we just don't know it. Um so I'd be interested to see kind of how that. Yeah. Should have just had World Draft High Seas again. It was the best limited experience I've ever had with Fab, hands down. With the exception of Scurv. Not a fan of that in draft, but it is what it is. Just CC with LL Heroes Legal, literally. If Cole was unrestricted, Chain could even fall under. Yep, absolutely, 100% agree. Oh, the old Vortex tech. Love it. Love it. Three calls off Eloquence, unload deck on the opponent. Yep. There you go. He's he's broken the format that does not exist. Oh man. Maybe L does come down to CC levels, but with a wider card pool though. Like, is that so bad? No, it's not a bad thing. Just you have to ask yourself why the fuck it exists. Um and ultimately the players are going to choose. Okay? That is ultimately what's going to happen. One of two this is what will happen with LL, okay? It started giga powerful. They stepped it down, they stepped it down, they stepped it down, right? We've seen a series of bans. First, they were like, "We're never banning anything in this format ever." Oh fuck, cracking the Aether vein. We got to do it. And then like that just opened the floodgate. Then they're like, "All right, let's take this off. Let's take this off. Let's take because the competitive player base said we're not fucking doing this." Okay? They literally grabbed their pitchforks and set buildings on fire, metaphorically, obviously. And yeah, we basically collectively said that we're not going to fucking do that, right? We're not having people draw 47 cards on their turn. With that being said, the player base is going to then decide again, ultimately, what happens. It is the format that we're going to, is it too strong? And if that's the case, then we would have to move to what you just said, where it's basically CC card pools, and which there has to be you approach a point to where you literally have no point of the format, right? Because if you have literally all of the cards banned the same, then you're literally just moving heroes from one format to another, but it's really the same thing. It just wouldn't have you would lose the point of having like living legend, right? I think that they would remove the entire aspect of living legend before they made that, in my opinion. And so I think that if LL is going to work, I think they have hit a sweet spot. I don't know if it's going to. I don't know what the player base is ultimately going to say. Like, this is what we're interested in. The interest that I've seen online, like anytime you post a video about LL, I guarantee you it'll get a fifth of the views, right? And ultimately, does that change? We're getting kind of close to Worlds. We're like, what, a little over a month out, and we'll be playing it in the biggest tournament ever. And the interest still doesn't seem. Maybe people are a little busy with CC right now, but like it just seems like nobody really cares. Um, and if that translates to really low attendance, then we have an issue with the format. We have a legitimate point in which we would sit there and say, why? Why are we doing this? Will we get that data from Worlds? Probably not, because I think Worlds is a high enough level to where it's like, look, people will probably just suck it up and go. And I don't think you'll see a massive attendance drop. But I'm interested what happens with the viewership. That's another aspect. You know, if you look at like Worlds coverage, we'll say, I'm just throwing numbers out. I don't know if they're accurate, but if you got like 10,000 people watching the classic constructed section of the live stream, the second you get to draft, I've literally watched it happen, bro. Half the people just dip the fuck out. They are gone, right? They are not interested in watching the stream. And Ethan has done some phenomenal shit with the stream, like the whole breaking down the draft decks and all of that, and showing all the like, just done some like absolutely stellar stuff. It's just people are not interested in the format. They do not enjoy watching it. I don't know why. Well, I don't like watching it, so I don't. I, but I can't put my finger on really what it is. I, actually, I do know what it is. There's no like storyline. There's no watching limited. How do I explain this? When I watch a CC game, I there's a storyline. There's a cause and effect. If certain games happen certain ways, there are ripple effects. We've seen this very recently with Victor playing into the Victor player playing into Florian and beating all the Florians. It literally makes a ripple into the game. Does it stay? Who the fuck knows? Maybe it was just a flash in the pan. Nobody knows. But people talk about it. It molds the game, and it changes a lot of people's perspectives every single moment after it happens. A limited game can never do that because you can never have a one-to-one replacement for a limited game because you can have ideas and macro strategies develop, but ultimately everybody's going to have a different deck, different resources, different draft processes. So it feels like when I'm watching a draft, I'm like, in 2 to 3 hours, none of this will ever be relevant, ever, period. And there's no production, there's no anything that that can change that or anything. It's just the fact that once that draft concludes, it is just irrelevant. And people don't want to spend 3 to 4 hours watching something that will be irrelevant. It's like, I don't know, like a lot of people are going crazy on like old school RuneScape and shit. Like imagine if you like created a character and you knew the character was going to be deleted in 4 hours. Go have fun. No, that would be like the most dog shit thing ever. Like it would be like terrible. I guess that really applies to any just game in general. Like if you just knew you were going to lose all your progress in 4 hours, nobody'd fucking do it. Like you just would not do it. So I get what you're saying, but I enjoyed watching High Seas Draft. That was the best version, and it was because it. I agree with what you're saying 100%, and it was because I think the Treasure Island aspect created an almost, I want to say, like entertainment aspect. I'm not saying that Flesh and Blood Limited is not entertaining to watch, but it created a focal point that two people are fighting for, and it's immersive to see the back and forth, knowing what the common goal is, because the common goal in a limited game can be very elusive to everybody that is not the players, right? Because you don't know what your win cons are. You don't, they do, you don't. And, but that fucking macro Treasure Island just created something. I don't know. It gave it a little bit of life. It wasn't a lot, but it was way more than anything else I've seen. Can you like double down on that? And I don't know. I don't know that it's interesting, but I agree. And that to me is why it was so much more interesting to actively watch. Um, we'll see. I'm interested. They're getting better every day at it. Because if you compare limited for the old sets, it is, whew, man, it was rough back in the day. Limited is worse silver. It could be that is what the final stage could actually look like. It is entirely possible. Chain best deck in format. We'll see. We will see. In my area, LL is not popular format at all. Seems similar for me as well. Well, I think they want their version of modern. I'm sure. There's a lot of things where you can kind of just see that they're trying to chase the magic formula. I hope there's validity to it because, there's an aspect of success in regards to magic, but at the same time, let's just copy the really good stuff. I'm not saying modern's bad. I'm just saying we got to be careful. We got to be careful, and we have to also pay attention to when. Like, you can't make modern magic in year 5 of the game existing. Doesn't make any fucking sense. So maybe what we're trying with LL or them trying to make modern is just too fucking early. I mean, that could entirely be the situation. I don't know. Once again, I'm not dogging on LL. I'm just saying that could be the situation. They should unban Kraken. I'm gonna stop reading. So that they would only give out one hero to the world champion. I see what you did there, and that was really clever. I 100% agree. That was really good. Does the format get better if they ban Chain and Starvo? No. I mean, better to who? If you have a history with Starvo and Chain, then you're just distraught, right? Because now you never kind of get that experience again. So ultimately, for the game, I think no, the format does not get better. Calling being LL would be a good indicator based on what you said. The Battle Hardened had to have another event because it was CC in full. Yeah, it very well could be. I wonder if people will watch it because it makes the decks that people. Yeah, exactly. There's less variety in gameplay. That's true as well. I don't really enjoy watching people build decks. That's fair. Limited is a rogue light. That's fair. Time to introduce DraftKings betting and draft coverage. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we have reached the final stage of flesh and blood coverage. Starvo's and Chain are always going to be problem for format balance, of course. They're just good hero abilities. Simple as that. I get what you're saying, but I enjoy watching. Yeah, we've already discussed that. I think having more fun mechanics in limited format can make it more entertaining. Yes, entertaining enough. That's the question that needs to be answered. Then they left a bad taste in our mouth by giving us Treasure Island interaction cards in the treasure packs. That's so base. Oh, that's too good. That's too good. Well, what can we do? What can we do? Well, I want to thank everybody for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Once again, the that quote unquote tier list that we made was just the initial setup of the analysis. Now we have to do the legwork, and of course, you can do your own as well and kind of come to your own conclusions. I'm going to do mine and kind of figure out where things actually land because there's a lot of stuff that I got to learn. This is just the brief overlook right now, the snapshot right now. Might learn things, might completely invalidate another 10 of those heroes, right? And maybe it just becomes 6 decks. Like pick one or get the fuck out. It could be how it ends up. You never know. But just wanted to walk through my process on analyzing the meta and kind of just formulating the basis point, where to start by creating a series of questions for each hero and then going out and answering those questions. And then once you do, that's when you actually get in a comfortable situation to produce an actual tier list, which will be in the making probably in about 2 to 3 weeks. We will do a LL tier list stream and we'll ultimately discuss what we landed on all of those answers. And I want to wish everybody the best of luck at their ProQuest if they are attending any this weekend. And yeah, if you play in any LL ones, because they should be going on soon. I know they're kind of on the rarer side, but if you do go to any, or if you've been to any, leave it in the comments. How did it go? Was it fun? Did people like were people in general having a good time? Were people mumbling under their breath the whole time? Man, I wish this was a CC one. You know, I'm curious. I'm very curious on what the community as a whole is kind of viewing LL at this current moment in time. I'm interested, and I hope everybody has a great weekend at PQs this weekend. And I will see everybody next week.